All right, welcome everybody. So excited to have everybody here today on a beautiful October day for the Visit Milwaukee monthly webinar series. Sorry for a few minute delay as we got started on the webinar today, but we've got a lot of exciting content for all of you as we begin our programming for today. So I'd like to begin first, Josh Albrecht, Chief Marketing Officer, Visit Milwaukee. So happy for all of you to join us today. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope the fall is going well. Today, we're taking a closer look at how travel is performing nationally and what those trends mean for Milwaukee's tourism landscape. We'll hear from our friend Patrick Smyton, Senior Manager of Analytics at Tourism Economics, who will share national travel insights, traveler sentiment, and what it all means for our destination. We're also joined by Paul Smith, Executive Director of the Native American Tourism of Wisconsin, who will discuss how NATOW is elevating cultural tourism and creating meaningful connections across the state. Before we get to our featured topics this afternoon, let's take a look at how our market performed in September in this month's STAR report. So let's take a quick look at how our hotels performed in September. Downtown hotels ended the month with occupancy at 67.7%, a small drop from last year, but average daily rate continued to climb, up nearly 2% to just under $178. Revenue per available room held steady at $127.70, and total revenue came in at just over $20.9 million. Across the county, performance was even stronger. Occupancy rose more than 2 points to 63.3%, and total demand was up nearly 4%. That growth helped county hotels bring in more than $35 million in revenue for the month. It was a solid September with healthy activity across the market and plenty of momentum heading into the final months of the year. Now, before we move on, I do want to take a moment to welcome our new and returning partners. We're so happy to have you aboard and grateful for the work you do to help share Milwaukee's story. Now, let's move into a few updates from around the city and our partner network. Let's kick things off our updates today by congratulating our very own Milwaukee Brewers on a magical season. From pocket pancakes to the power of friendship, this team gave us a summer to remember. The Brewers tied the franchise record for most wins in a season, went on an incredible 14-game winning streak that meant free burgers for everyone, and clinched the NL Central title and capped it off with a win over their division rivals, the Chicago Cubs, in the divisional series. It was quite the ride, and we were thrilled to be a part of it. We can't wait to see what next season brings. And as we close the book on baseball season, we want to wish the Milwaukee Admirals good luck as they get their season underway. The AHL affiliate of the Nashville Predators dropped the puck earlier this month, and their next home game is tomorrow night against the Rockford IceHogs. You can find tickets, schedules, and more by visiting Milwaukee Admirals' website. And of course, we're sending plenty of good luck to the Milwaukee Bucks, who tipped off their season last week against the Washington Wizards. The Bucks are ready to give the league another reason to fear the deer this season, and you'll want to be a part of it. Their next home game is tonight against the Knicks. Head to the Bucks website for tickets and game details. And if you're heading to Fiserv Forum this season, you'll notice some tasty new additions to the lineup. The Bucks have introduced fresh food, drink, and retail options, including Chucho's Red Tacos, baked potatoes from Southside Market, Skimmer's Hard Iced Tea, and King's Hawaiian Pretzel Bites. Check them out next time you're at the arena or visit the Bucks website to see the full lineup. And speaking of the Deer District, there's even more to cheer about with the opening of Tom's Watch Bar. Just in time for Bucks basketball. The new sports bar brings wall-to-wall screens, great food, and a lively atmosphere to the heart of downtown, giving you another perfect place to catch a game or grab a bite before heading to Fiserv Forum. Congratulations to Tom's Watch Bar on their grand opening. We can't wait to see it become a new game day favorite in Milwaukee. And just across the plaza from Fiserv Forum, the excitement keeps going with the newly named Landmark Credit Union Live announcing its first slate of shows. Rainbow Kitten Surprise will take the stage for the venue's first ever concert on February 27th, with other upcoming performances from Bossman D-Lo and Mariah the Scientist. See the full lineup and get your tickets today by visiting the Landmark Credit Union Live website. And of course, the Milwaukee Theater District just got even more entertaining with the opening of the Associated Bank Theater Center, the new home of the Milwaukee Repertory Theater. The reimagined space features 3 state-of-the-art venues, a 3-level lobby, new dining spaces, and an education center. See what's on stage now by visiting Milwaukee Rep website. Summerfest Tech is already gearing up for 2026 with big plans to expand its footprint and its programming. The festival will feature a new partnership with AI platform Shazam and will welcome the company's co-founder as keynote speaker. The expansion marks another exciting step forward for Milwaukee as a hub for innovation and technology. Learn more about what's ahead and register today by visiting the Summerfest Tech website. And speaking of Summerfest, while Summerfest Tech looks ahead to expanding programming for 2026, Summerfest itself, the world's largest music festival, is also preparing for another unforgettable year of live music. Applications are now open for artists of all genres to join the 2026 lineup and perform in front of thousands of fans from around the world. Learn more and apply today by visiting the Summerfest website. We'd also like to congratulate Bars and Rec on the opening of their new Slingshot Bar in West Allis. The space combines duckpin bowling, shuffleboard, and classic arcade games with craft cocktails and shareable bites. Sling on by and check it out. And we welcome to your office, the new Milwaukee Hangout in Easttown. The bar brings a relaxed retro vibe to the neighborhood with cocktails, local beer, and an atmosphere made for catching up with friends after work or on the weekend. Stop in and clock in to your office today. Sweet news from 3rd Street Market Hall. The Candy Shop is now open and brings a colorful mix of nostalgic favorites and unique treats to the market, adding another reason to stop in for a snack between bites at your favorite food hall. Stop by today to pick up a sweet treat. Of course, this Friday, October 31st, Dia de los Muertos returns to the Mitchell Park Domes for a night filled with color, culture, and celebration. Student-created ofrendas, live mariachi music, traditional dancers, and a candlelit walk of memories will fill the domes with color and energy, creating a night that truly captures the spirit of Dia de los Muertos. Experience the celebration for yourself from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Mitchell Park Domes. And this Saturday, the Wisconsin Restaurant Association's Cheers to Hospitality returns to Discovery World to celebrate the people and places that make Wisconsin's dining scene shine. Enjoy dishes from top chefs, live entertainment, and lakefront views as we toast to another great year in hospitality. Finally, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our friends at Pabst Theater Group for another packed, widespread Panic Weekend. For 3 days, Wisconsin Avenue, right outside our offices, turned into a street festival as part of this annual celebration that brings the festival spirit to the Milwaukee Theater District. Congratulations to Pabst Theater Group, and we can't wait to welcome this event back again next year. Now, speaking of celebrations, we'll roll now into some of our own updates, beginning with a special birthday celebration. Henry Winkler and the Bronze Fonz turned 80 this Thursday, and we're throwing a party at the iconic statue along the River Walk. CBS 58 will be broadcasting live, and the fun keeps going all day with giveaways, themed drinks, and plenty of surprises. You can also win a Harley-Davidson leather jacket, a 2-night stay at Double Dutch Hotel, a Southwest Airlines flight voucher, and more by entering the Ultimate Bronze Fonz Getaway today. And if you haven't reserved your spot in our official visitor's guide yet, now's the time. This is one of the best tools for getting your business in front of visitors throughout the entire 2026 year, and ad sales are going fast. Listings close on November 14th, so be sure to lock in your placement through the partner portal. If you have any questions, reach out to Senior Partnership Manager Brian Kubel. And I'm excited to share that Milwaukee Flavor, the cookbook, is now available. This project has been a long time coming and features personal recipes from local chefs who celebrate Milwaukee's food scene every day. It's a true taste of the city and a celebration of the bold, fresh flavors that make Milwaukee special. You can find your copy now at Boswell Book Company. And if you're hungry for a second helping of Milwaukee Flavor, the cookbook, join us at Boswell Book Company on November 17th at 6:30 p.m. for a special event celebrating the chefs and stories behind the book. The evening will feature a lively conversation with contributors Karen Bell of Bavette La Boucherie, Ariel Hawthorne of Twisted Plants, Stephanie Kegel of Kegel's Inn, and Tony Cora of Rice and Roll Bistro and Kin by Rice and Roll. It's your chance to get a taste of Milwaukee flavor in person and hear how these chefs are shaping the city's culinary story. We'll wrap up our fall programming with the Partner Mixer on November 12th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at Belter Superstore. It's a great opportunity to connect with partners, enjoy food, drinks, fun activations, and do a little holiday shopping at one of Milwaukee's best culinary destinations. Save your spot today on the RSV page of our website. And now I'd like to welcome Paul Smith to the webinar. Paul is the Executive Director of the Native American Tourism of Wisconsin. He is a member of the United Nation of Wisconsin and a lifelong Milwaukee resident. He's an MPS, MATC, and UWM graduate and serves as Vice President of the Milwaukee Intertribal Circle, Commissioner for the City of Milwaukee's Office of Equity Inclusion, and on several other boards and committees throughout the city. He brings a passion for community, storytelling, and cultural connection to his work every day. Paul, take it away.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for the introduction, Josh. I appreciate it. You built me up. Now I got to match it. I'm here today to just to talk about the opportunities in tourism in Native American country, or Indian country as we call it, throughout Wisconsin. We have 11 recognized federal tribes in Wisconsin and one unrecognized tribe in the Brotherton. It is my duty to serve all these tribes and the Lac Vieux Desert tribe in Michigan in the UP. So this is going to be my 6 months into my role as executive director, and I've been traveling across the state, learning and all about the tribal assets that we have for tourism across the state of Wisconsin. And every nation is a little bit different from the other due to location and just the resources they have available to them. For me, I'm Oneida. I'm from an Oneida Nation. We have great campgrounds, we have lakes, and and part of my job, or all of my job, is to promote all these assets outside of gaming. So when I'm not, I may not do all the casinos, but I am advocating and marketing for the hotels and resorts and the acts and all the entertainment that goes to the casinos. But if it has a bell and whistle and it gives you a little bit of money, that's not my department. So I deal with natural resources, I deal with byways and food and powwows and museums and cultural education and all the other things that we have to offer in tourism outside of the gaming one. NATOW has been focused a lot on since we're 14 years old, state of Wisconsin, and we are part of the Great Lakes Intertribal Circle. I'm also the vice president of the Milwaukee Intertribal Circle. We hosted a couple events this year in Milwaukee. NATOW will be hosting a few events in Milwaukee as well this year coming up. We are excited to announce that we will be having our winter gala at the Potawatomi Bingo Casino and Hotel this year. We like to move around our events to each reservation and casino and resort. And this year, our winter gala is taking place right here in Milwaukee. We will be celebrating the contemporary food dishes of our nations. I'm bringing food from around the state of Wisconsin from almost every reservation, so we can able to enjoy and feel relaxed to have a contemporary meal in an elegant format and environment. 7-course meal with entertainment, of course, will be provided on January 30th, 2026. And we'll also be hosting our summer gala in Oneida, Wisconsin on June 24th through 26th. So that's about all I have, Josh. Do you have any questions out there for me? Oh, yeah. Thanks for that clip. I almost forgot. This is the third Native American Heritage Night that I'll be working with the Milwaukee Bucks franchise in 1 year. I did my first Heritage Night for the G League in Oshkosh over a year ago, and that became the model for the entire G League. When the Milwaukee Bucks asked them who they had to help them plan their Native American Heritage Night, they gave me a call and they bumped me up to the majors from the minors. So this is we did our first Native American Heritage Night last year in February. Unfortunately, not Native American Heritage Month, but we have proof of concept. We impressed the Milwaukee Bucks enough that they agreed to have it this year in November, and November 29th versus the Nets on Saturday. So this will be actually my third one in one calendar month year for the Milwaukee Bucks doing a Native American Heritage Night. We will have dancers and drummers pregame, and hopefully we have a good showing. Potawatomi Bingo and Casino has seen our efforts in producing this night and will take over the night in 2026 and promises to bring the Native American Heritage Night big time. So I look forward to working with them this year, but Potawatomi and the Bucks will have a major entertainment act with Native American Night next year in 2026.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing with us all the great work that NATOW does to highlight Native stories and elevate culture and tourism across Wisconsin. It's such a tremendous impact. And we're proud to support that mission.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Oh, this is the wrong flyer, but we originally agreed on the Houston Rockets, but we got bumped. So that we got bumped by their veterans, and that's okay. So we are actually on November 29th. So
great. So the date everybody should look out for is November 29 with the Milwaukee Bucks Native American Heritage Night.
yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks again, Paul, for the information and being a great resource for our community.
Excellent.
Next, I'm excited to introduce Tourism Economics, who will give us a rundown of the latest travel trends. Patrick Smyton, Senior Manager of Analytics at Tourism Economics, helps destination marketing organizations translate complex data into actionable insights. He brings more than 20 years of experience in tourism, from hotel operations to destination strategy, including time with MGM Resorts International and Visit Seattle. Patrick, take it away.
Thanks so much, Josh, and thanks everyone there at Visit Milwaukee and all your partners for having me this afternoon. I'm going to turn my video off, just make sure everything comes through well with my slides here and just share my screen. Okay, thanks so much again for having me this afternoon. As Josh mentioned, representing tourism economics. We are part of Oxford Economics, one of the world's largest economics consulting firm, independent advisory. We work with a number of clients around the globe, trying to make sense of a pretty complex economic system and world that we live in. In tourism economics, we're specifically handling the tourism space across the globe. We'd work with many destination organizations and associations, including Visit Milwaukee. Happy to be working with Josh and the team now for many years and helping make sense of what's happening in your great city and destination. One quick example of some work that we do outside of just the city of Milwaukee is our company reports annually the economic impact of visitors to Wisconsin. So you may see this, you may have seen Josh and his team quote this various times to talk about the power of tourism and the power of travel within the economy and what that means for the state of Wisconsin. Just a quick preview. I think you might have seen this was released earlier this year. I hope I'm not breaking any news. Certainly not the intention, but just to highlight some of the analysis that our company does for your state, about $26 billion in economic impact. And I thought this was an especially important part of the report, highlighting here the river right there in center Milwaukee, and visitors spending $44 million per day in Wisconsin last year. All right, so let's start talking about what we're seeing out there from an economic and travel industry landscape, and then I'll kind of weave through what that means for Milwaukee and how you're trending relative to the rest of the country. So first, it's 2025. The word of the year, I think, is tariffs. We've been tracking and trying to make sense of what's happening with all the policy announcements coming out of the White House throughout 2025. And based on the 2024 mix of imports, the rates kind of varied throughout the year, given some of the announcements, some of the exceptions, some of the changes. Ultimately, what that lands us on is about a 15% effective rate as a country. And importantly, the prior administration, we were running about 3%. So the tariff rate is just very different than we've seen historically. As noted there, really first time in the last 100 years or so, we've been at this effective rate. And what does that mean for the economy? Well, now we're tracking that we think the tariffs are actually coming through to consumer prices. Businesses throughout the year in 2025 have been doing what they can to try to absorb costs. They've been maintaining inventories and keeping supply chains going and trying to front load as much as they could prior to these tariffs taking effect in various industries. But we do think that those delays are kind of coming to pass, and we do think that the price effects will continue to grow within the economy. And one piece of data that actually did come out with the government shutdown was last week. The inflation report came out for September, and the BLS reported that the annualized inflation rate rose to about 3%. So we remain above where the Fed would prefer us to be at 2%. We were getting close. Certainly, we're nowhere near the highs of 2022 and 2023, but we do think we would be in a lower position if not for tariffs. Uh, so speaking of the kind of macro environment, jobs is a really important measure that we keep an eye on, and this is really kind of the heartbeat of the economy. Many people kind of take this as a measure of the health and strength of the economy nationally. And needless to say, in 2025, the job growth that we've seen as a country has definitely changed, and we've seen softer growth over the last several months. The September number here is an estimate, again, based on the federal government closure, that we think we might have added close to 100,000 jobs in the month of September. Unemployment, kind of the other leg of the stool with respect to the labor market. Unemployment's been rising, but it does remain low at a relatively steady rate of 4.3%. Importantly, last year was 4.2%. So we haven't seen a significant growth in the unemployment rate. We're kind of at a stagnant pace of labor nationally. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that the labor force participation rate, excuse me, has declined much of 2025. We think if the rate maintained where it was in early 2025, we'd be thinking more like a 5% unemployment rate, which is a little bit more on the high side. And really, two main reasons for the labor force participation rate reduction: the retirement of baby boomers and also the effects of the Trump administration's immigration and deportation actions. Specifically on the shutdown, focusing here on some areas of the country that are most impacted by job changes, whether through furloughs or extended unemployment trajectories. Certainly, the area around DC, Baltimore is most affected, but many metro areas across the country, we think are seeing some issues with unemployment. As this drags on, we think the loss in GDP generally is growing and significant and into the many dozens of billions of dollars now that we're nearly a month into the shutdown. So notwithstanding the shutdown, looking at some of the data that we're seeing consumers coming out with, we keep an eye on the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, which in 2025 has continued to be fairly low historically. And we're seeing that continue to be the case here, given some of the uncertainty. You're going to hear me continue to use the word uncertainty because that's definitely what consumers and businesses are seeing. And another important break, and we'll be speaking about this as we go through some of the further data on this presentation, is the disparity between types of income levels within the United States. The top 33% of income bracket, the sentiment is a little bit higher. And the bottom 33%, we're seeing it at a lower level. And the reason for that is the discretionary spend for which the higher income earners have, and the lower income earners do not have as much. On the lower income households, those are hit harder by the tariffs we talked about. Those households tend to have less financial buffers, and they tend to experience weaker wage growth. Similarly, businesses are concerned. So charting the NFIB Optimism Index components, they've been kind of all over the map. And the uncertainty is really at really high levels here. Again, especially from a small business standpoint, similar to kind of the disparity between the high income and low income consumers, smaller companies are less able to withstand some of this uncertainty. Lots of disruption out there and lots of people that are a little unsure and a little wary of what's happening to come. So just to kind of sum from an economic standpoint, certainly there's arguments to be made for why tariffs are in place, but purely from an economic standpoint and perspective, we think there's mostly negative effects that leads to higher prices, higher interest rates, and slows economic growth. Speaking of economic growth, our parent company is projecting that the growth will be down in 2025 from where it's been in recent years. That said, we still do expect growth, so 2.1% increase. Many consumers out there might be thinking we're either in a recession or nearing recession. We don't see that being the case, but we do see the economy in a kind of a bit of a flux mode and certainly some riskiness here, given a lot of what we're seeing on the jobs front and on the prices front. But we do think that there's some improvement next year, and I'll speak to that here just in a few moments. But specifically, how does this relate to travel, and what are we seeing nationally from a travel industry perspective? One data point that we like to measure is total air passenger counts from the TSA checkpoint numbers that have been released pretty consistently. I say consistently, they haven't really been released over the last few weeks, at least within detail. And the volumes, they've been similar to last year. So similar to last year, kind of trending at that same point of what we saw in 2024, ahead of 2019, importantly. And this follows kind of a softness that we saw in the spring. So this data is updated through the end of August. And we did see a bit of an uptick in the end of the summer with better volumes. But one of the major measures that we use, and I saw Josh at the top highlighted the Milwaukee Area Star Report results, and I'll be diving into that here specifically in a little bit, contrasting what we're seeing nationally. But rolling up all the data that Star pulls in from a national perspective, we're kind of at a stunted point for the industry. We're seeing demand negative 0.2% versus last year through September. RevPAR is flat. Our projection for the end of the year, at least as of August, at Tourism Economics, was that RevPAR would decline 0.1% nationally for the full year. We're coming into a Q4 where in 2024, a lot of markets, although through disasters, mostly hurricanes, did see really strong hotel demand and need, given some of the short-term relocations in much of the Southeast United States, especially. So we think the Q4 comparison might be a little difficult as well, but hard to say what the hurricane season might have for us here in the next few months. I think another way to look at this is kind of the stair-step view. It's essentially a stair-step view of the month-by-month change on a year-over-year basis. Demand has stalled. Demand, as we saw a second ago, is down 0.2% year to date. Outside of a pretty decent Q1, we've seen it be relatively soft through the last 6 months or so, and ADR growth is also kind of stunted. So again, I'll contrast this just in a little bit with what we're seeing in Milwaukee. As Josh mentioned, you're seeing some pretty good results, but I'll dive into that here in just a little bit. Another major way that we like to classify this data at the national level is the performance by type of class of hotel. So STR segments all properties in different classes, and luxury and upper upscale are doing the best on a year-to-date basis through September. And many on the mid-scale and economy, some of the smaller, the limited service brands are doing a little bit poorly relative to last year. And importantly, I'll dive into also just in a little bit what the Milwaukee mix is, at least from a downtown standpoint. Almost 40 hotels, and where do you stand within this realm? Just taking a quick peek into the type of demand that we measure nationally. So overall demand is in the blue, and demand is another way of saying room nights. So how busy is the industry? How many people are staying overnight in hotels? Group business has been lagging the overall recovery the last couple of years. This is comparing versus 2019. Yes, we're in 2025, still comparing to 2019. We think it's still an appropriate measure in a lot of cases. And again, you'll see that here as we progress through the presentation. But group is kind of performing a little bit poorly. And a lot of that's because of what we talked about just a few moments ago with uncertainty from a business perspective, issues with funding, issues with attendance. And some of that is also due to international uncertainty. So one of the measures that the National Travel and Tourism Office puts out is how many overseas visitor arrivals there are to the United States. This data does not include Canadians or visitors from Mexico, but this is specific to overseas travel. And we've seen consistently since February that we've been down about 2 to 3% on a monthly basis. And if this graph were to extend further on the left into 23, 22, et cetera, we would have seen double-digit growth recovering from the depths of COVID. So we did expect, and I'll show that in just a second, that we would be at a better point in 2026, 25, excuse me. And more importantly than overseas, especially for those in Milwaukee close to the Canadian border, Canadian visitor arrivals were also plummeting really in this year. Through August, we're seeing them down nearly 30% from the land border, down as well from the air borders or the air access, excuse me. And importantly, Canadians are still traveling. Our company works very closely with Destination Canada, and we're measuring travel in and around Canadian provinces. And Canadians are actually traveling to other parts of the world. They're going to Western Europe, they're going to parts of South America, excuse me, Central America, and the Caribbean. And that's actually increased on a year-by-year basis. Another measure that we're keenly aware of is the fact that since really 21 and 22, as the international travel system kind of rebounded back from the restrictions that we saw during the pandemic, that more people are leaving the United States than there are coming into the United States relative to the same months in 19. So again, using 19 as a basis, we're seeing more outbound travel, more people going to Europe, Asia, South America, than those folks are coming into the United States. And that's actually a 13 million trip gap in 2025. So 38 million through August of foreigners coming into the United States and over 52 million Americans going abroad. It's a gap, as you can see here, that was the other direction in 2019, with more foreigners entering the US than we saw Americans going abroad. And I mentioned a second ago, we had expected that we would be at a better trajectory and position. But the growth in 25, we're expecting to be international inbound trips to be down about 6%. And we're growing significantly at a strong clip coming out of the worst of COVID. We do now expect that in 2029, kind of on the right side, or some of the bar charts are showing that international levels will be consistent with 2019 by 2029. Domestic travel fully recovered in 2023. So international has really just got this long tail. And overall, within the lodging sphere, I just wanted to point this out too. I didn't get into any specifics on the Milwaukee slides, but we talk a lot about the lodging space being beyond just the hotel space coming out of COVID. We've seen a large increase in interest in vacation rentals. There's somewhat an increase of 20 to 30% in demand in short-term rentals across the United States from where we were pre-COVID. There's also an increase in cruise utilization, cruise capacity. The overall lodging has improved, but hotel room nights are kind of flat to where they were in 19. And again, I'll speak to that just a second. But overall lodging has kind of been in step with what the GDP growth has been over the last several years. So we see kind of generally that visitors and consumers are choosing different paths with which to stay. All right, so this is when I'm run too many negative slides in a row, trying to throw some positive commentary out there for you all to understand what some of the perspective. And specifically with the shutdown, we do think while it's bad and it's prohibitive for the economy, we haven't seen a major impact in both DC and other parts of the US thus far. And from what we're able to measure from a national basis, air passenger volumes seem to be holding up and actually rising over last year. And it's not all doom and gloom from an international inbound perspective. There are many markets of the top 15 coming to the United States that are growing on a year-over-year basis. United Kingdom is right in the middle of this chart, of 2.1% increase. United Kingdom's one of the top, if not the top, inbound overseas market to the United States. Mexico also. So while Canada is seeing a decline, Mexico is seeing an increase. So despite some of the policy rhetoric coming out of the administration and coming out of from the national level, we are seeing more visitation from last year for Mexico and other markets like Italy, Japan, Brazil, and Spain. So I highlighted a lot at the beginning of the conversation about rising costs and what costs mean to the economy and why that's an important component for us to measure. But along with costs, people are also getting paid a little bit more than they were last year. So average hourly earnings overall, we're up 3.7% over the last year. So that does still, it's a small green arrow there, but there is still a little bit of gap to allow for consumers to have spending power and to still spend money on discretionary items like travel. Looking at some survey data, there's a company called Future Partners that does consistent surveys of a panel of a couple thousand travelers, excuse me, on a monthly basis. And enthusiasm's been consistently high, even in 2025 with some of the turbulence we've just talked about. And also budgets continue to be very, very high. So while costs are going up and rates are following as well, which we'll talk about in a second, what's happening locally especially. The consumer budgets from this set of individuals that were paneled, over $6,000 is what they're expecting to spend on leisure travel in the next 12 months. Now, I did include in this data that some of that is for international travel, as we saw a second ago, but there is still a lot of interest and excitement for domestic travel. From a household perspective, which we've talked a lot about, the different the different income levels. Generally, household net worth has improved the last number of years, despite some dips, and debt service remains kind of at a historically kind of moderate level. Looking specifically at the bill that was passed this summer, the One Big Beautiful Bill, from an economic standpoint, in the next 1 to 2 years, we do expect that there's a positive fiscal boost to growth in the United States. And much of that growth is going to be boosted to the higher income households. So the fiscal package, we do think with tax incentives and other investments by the federal government, that there will be a boost to the higher income levels, offsetting some of the declines we think from tariffs and other prices within the economy. And why do we keep talking about higher income households? Well, our company has analyzed the landscape. This was as recently as 2023, that 1/3 of households, those that make over $100,000, so not necessarily the top 1%, but folks that make over $100,000 for household income, they represent more than 2/3 of spending on lodging. So they over-index in terms of those who are spending money in lodging. And just a couple more views from a national landscape. This is a long view of what the U.S. hotel market has looked like for the last several decades. And CoStar has modeled this, or excuse me, has analyzed this for a number of years since the late 80s. The United States used to be much heavier within the economy and mid-scale brands, some of the lower priced hotels, and we've changed a lot. So the supply has decreased from almost half being economy to under a quarter. Luxury has gone from 4% to 6%, but everything else has grown a little bit since then. And there's been especially a change with the revenue composition. So the economy sector used to make up about 1/3 of all revenue. Now it makes up less than 10%. So the economy is the hotel industry has kind of changed within the economy, as well as we're seeing kind of higher income households do well, and we're kind of seeing that the type of product has shifted that way. All right, so thanks for hanging with me. Just a quick recap on the national perspective. Generally a little bit riskier and softer view on the near term, but we do have more bullish outlook in 2026 with some of the boosting to the economy that we're expecting from some of the policy changes. We do think ultimately the domestic travel is resilient given a number of challenges that we've seen within our industry for the last several years. All right, so again, thanks for holding on. Let me dive into some Milwaukee specific data. So I mentioned comparing to 2019. So let's take a look at what occupancy looks like for downtown Milwaukee hotels relative to the same month in 2019. You can see there's been kind of some ups and some downs, getting a little bit close to where we were in 19, but still not quite to the same levels. And I thought it was important to bring in the United States performance at the same level. So the US also had, of course, a really soft 2020 and parts of 2021 in terms of occupancy. And this is, again, a month by month comparison to how those same months compare to those months in 2019. So while the Milwaukee hotels are a little bit behind from an occupancy perspective, the United States also has not fully recovered as well. Another important measure that we look at is demand. So how many rooms are being sold across downtown Milwaukee? Again, nearly 40 hotels. And you're getting really close to the levels in 2019. You were basically there this past summer, basically there last spring. Again, getting very, very close. In the US, is kind of really right around the recovery level. So lagging a bit in Milwaukee, but the United States is by no means out ahead of this. Let's also look at average daily rate. So Josh mentioned you've had some good growth in September. So looking at the long-term view of how average daily rate has transpired from a monthly basis all the way back to early 2020 versus 19, you've had some really solid gains and really consistently outpacing 2019. And specifically, you can see some of the spikes on a monthly basis for some of the special events that have been hosted in the Milwaukee area or Milwaukee itself when it comes to the RNC last July. I think it was 180% or something of your 2019 levels. So certainly taking advantage of that tremendous opportunity for your market. And then lastly, kind of overlaying here the US performance. And your ADR generally is outpacing the US, especially with some of these peak summer months, some of the peak performances you're seeing from some of these events. Again, even as recently as this past summer, it's kind of hard to see there on the chart, but you did outperform the US from an ADR perspective this past summer. All right, taking a shift into a couple different types of data sets. This I thought would be important to focus on. Again, it's a very long-term view, but we talked about jobs at the beginning and some of the turbulence there within the economy. This again looks at really 2021, 2022 as kind of the worst of within our industry in terms of open rates. Almost 1 in 10 positions were open within our industry in 2022 at the worst of kind of that post-COVID rebound where many people were leaving their positions. And the light gray here is non-farm positions, which is essentially the rest of the economy. And the light blue is what our team has modeled, or our team of economists has modeled for leisure hospitality specifically. So many of the businesses that you all are running on a daily basis, whether it's hotels or similar businesses that rely on tourism, you're seeing, again, kind of a very turbulent couple of years, but then recovering back similar to where we were prior to COVID. All right, so I wanted to just bring some jobs numbers in there. I also wanted to speak to, I think, the seasonality. So we talked about how the market's recovering a bit. I think the seasonality is important to note as well. Your seasonality is similar to what it was in 2019. That's that light gray bar in terms of how many rooms are sold on a month-by-month basis. But you're seeing it especially pronounced these last couple of years. So the light kind of yellow or gold line is 2025 seasonality, and kind of peaked in March, down a little bit in April because of the shift of Easter. But just pointing out here that the amount of rooms that you sell in the summer is great. You're getting a lot of business across the industry, across the market, especially in months like June, July, August, and even September, and now a little bit of October, bridging that as well. But just know that the January, February, November, December period just continues to be kind of the softer months. And that's really where we should be trying to do as much as we can to generate as much business within the market. All right, so just the last couple slides here. Again, I wanted to feature, I mentioned earlier, the makeup of the United States hotel market and how that's changed. Really, the bulk of the hotels in Milwaukee are in what STR considers upper upscale and upscale. So still on the higher mode of the scales and classes here, as you see going from luxury to economy. You do have a handful of properties that qualify for economy and mid-scale, but many of them are in the upper upscale and upscale categories, more than 3/4. So you're doing kind of ahead of the curve in that regard in terms of the type of properties that you have, which in turn produces the type of guests that can pay a pretty decent rate, as we saw the rate growth pretty significant since 2019. All right, so we talked a little bit just a few moments ago about occupancy relative to 19, but how is it changing on a year-over-year basis? Well, you've had some growth, you've had some declines. Again, I mentioned in the spring, there's the shift of Easter that tends to kind of happen every year, that you might get some growth one year, but then some declines the next year. But I think especially on here, June, July, August, seeing really strong hotel occupancy growth for Milwaukee, and contrasting that with the United States. I know it's probably been a few minutes, but one of the first slides I shared when we talked about the national industry was the United States seeing a decline in demand the last several months, really since Q1 of 2025. And what this shows is that from an occupancy perspective, which is really the measure of demand, out there in this space, relative to supply, but still kind of measuring how full is the city versus how full the United States hotels are. You're doing much better than the United States, again, for the critical summer months, these last few months. Similar review on ADR, we're seeing that growth. July 2024, of course, had a huge year-over-year change. So you gave some of that back in July 2025. The 5 days of RNC were really just not sustainable in 2025 versus what we saw in 24, but really some consistent growth in 2025. Again, generally outpacing what we're seeing across the United States. As you can see, really the very faint light blue bars there in 2025, as the U.S. hotel ADR growth has softened, you're seeing better growth across Milwaukee in most months, again, outside of the RNC equation. And I wanted to show as well from a submarket perspective. So Josh talked about the county and downtown. Those are major areas that we always talk about with him and the team on how you're performing. But there's also areas around the Milwaukee region like north and south and Wauwatosa. Generally, we're seeing, again, stronger occupancy growth, but a little softer on the ADR side. And importantly, I did this analysis for downtown because we do have the day-by-day results. If we take out 5 days in 2024, take out the same 5 days in 25, as an apples to apples comparison, ADR is actually up almost 5% year over year. So you're seeing a really strong 2025 in Milwaukee, despite some of the challenges that the national economy is seeing. So I think it's a really strong sign that you have a healthy market, and hopefully primed well for the years to come. Just the last few little bits here. Again, thanks for hanging on. Another piece of data that we look at, in addition to lodging and labor and some of those indicators, both at a local and national level, is what's the type of visitor that's coming to Milwaukee. So we use mobile location data, cell phone data to try to triangulate, who's coming into Milwaukee. You'll see in a second the map. We exclude areas in and around your city, just to kind of use a 50-mile radius as a gauge for who's really visiting. We have some minimum time in the market, some maximum time in the market to kind of just give you who's spending time. Well, about half of those who came this past summer within this sample were from within Wisconsin and also from your neighboring state of Illinois. Importantly there, that means about half of the visitors are from outside both your state and your very close neighbor to the south. So states like, which I'm sure you're used to seeing some visitors from, hopefully near businesses like Iowa, Missouri, Michigan, Minnesota, even as far away like Texas and Florida. So not only from the state perspective, but we also look at it from a metro area standpoint. Of course, being very close to Chicago, and that being a very large MSA, about 1 in 5 of the trips to Milwaukee this past summer were from the Chicago area. But again, that means 4 in 5 are from other areas of the United States, and beyond Chicago. Some parts of Wisconsin, some parts of certainly like St. Louis and Kansas City and Minneapolis, some other major Midwest markets coming into Milwaukee this past summer. So here's the view from a kind of a heat map perspective, which we think is a good way to visualize, well, where a lot of those devices originating from. As you can see, kind of pockets throughout the United States outside of the Midwest. Really, it's just some major flight markets into Milwaukee. And one other way to look at that is if we separate the data out to look at only devices that travel more than 500 miles to Milwaukee, here are the markets that we're seeing show up most readily, the most. About a quarter of your overall visitation is from beyond 500 miles. And you're seeing visitors from areas like Dallas, Fort Worth, Atlanta, Houston, New Orleans, and New York City, just to name a few. So really just an interesting landscape out there, and let's hope that there's some interesting and continued strong growth in 2026 for your market and beyond.
All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. I really appreciate the insights that you're able to give all of us here in Milwaukee, some travel trends. Any one big takeaway that you might have for us today?
Go Bucks.
That's a good one. Yeah. As someone who's been to a Bucks game, I know that you are secretly a Bucks fan, maybe even if you live.
I mean, anywhere you can catch bratwurst from a launcher is an A+ place in my book.
Fantastic. Thanks again for joining us. It was a great look at national and local travel trends. Hope all of you joining us were able to glean some wonderful insight into how these patterns are shaping Milwaukee's visitor economy. I do want to point out that some of you did put in the comments that you were having some technical difficulties preventing you from seeing all of the slides that were shared. No worries, as we'll be sending out the full presentation for everyone in our follow-up email. Expect to see that in your email inboxes tomorrow. And thanks again to Paul Smith for sharing some of the great work that NATOW has been doing all across our entire state. Now, before we close out, I want to remind you all that our next Visit Milwaukee webinar will take place on November 18th at 2 p.m. We'll be highlighting how we're making Milwaukee more accessible for every visitor, from our accessibility portal to the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Program. You'll also hear how you can get involved to help make Milwaukee welcoming for all. We'll see you 1 week earlier than usual to account for the Thanksgiving holiday. Keep an eye on your inbox for the RSVP link and more details. Thank you again for joining us today. If you have any questions, please reach out to our marketing coordinator, Chris Amon. And thank you again. Have a great week, and we'll see you in November.